The guys from Ping, they've kind of shown me how much the equipment matters.
I just love that I can hit any shot I kind of want.
We're going to be able to tell some fun stories about what goes on here to help golfers play better golf.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Ping Proving Grounds podcast. I'm Shane Bacon, joined as always by Marty Jertz. And Marty, we've got a YouTube video out right now. Competitive YouTube golf. Are we now YouTube golfers? Is that the world we live in?
Yeah, no, I think we're up there with some of the, it's the view count's going up, Shane. And I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of feedback from some friends that have really enjoyed the content. And, we don't want to tease what happens at the end there, but let's just say we had quite a competitive match out there at Estancia earlier this year.
Yeah, shout out to James and the team. They did a great job of shooting it and the drone footage. I mean, Estancia is one of the great desert golf courses in the world, not just in the state of Arizona. It's one of my favorite courses, if not my favorite course in the state of Arizona. And it let me just say, it photographs well and it drones well.
It does. Yeah, it is also the number one ranked course in Arizona, just ahead of Forest Highlands Canyon, which is more of a tree line course up north. But Estancia is quite a treat. That was a fun battle, and for those of you that haven't watched it, I'd suggest going on there and watching it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's on the Ping YouTube page. We'll add a link in the notes for this episode as well, so you can check that out. Today, Marty, we're going to talk about putters, which I think is the most excited I've been about talking about a golf club in the existence of this podcast. And we've got somebody awesome to chat with us, Marty. I'll give you the opportunity to introduce him.
Yeah, Mr. Alex Webb. Alex, thanks for coming on the pod. Super excited to have you and talk about PLD putters. I think what I'm very excited about what we've done with PLD over the last 3, 4, 5 years, Shane and Alex, we'll deep dive on this topic is, we've kind of prided ourselves at Ping of making everything that the tour player can get access to available to the everyday golfer. And that's a big part of what we've done with PLD Custom is to pass along that personalization, that custom fitting aspect, and making it available to the everyday golfer. Alex been on our team as a fitter for quite some time and really hunkered down in going super deep on putter fitting. So he handles all of our PLD custom fittings that we do with his colleagues here at the Ping Proving Grounds. Alex, welcome to the podcast, and look forward to having a good chat with you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here. Can't wait to talk about putters.
Alex, I wanted to start with this. Can you give people that don't know the history of PLD? Because I think Ping putters and its history have been talked about a lot on this podcast, but I'm not sure people totally grasp maybe how new PLD is to the world.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So PLD started around 2016 when Bubba Watson came to us wanting to design a custom fully machined answer putter for himself. So he worked with our team, he worked with Tony Serrano to really get down to the specifics of exactly what he wanted to see out of this answer putter. So that was kind of the birth of PLD. From there, over the years, we worked with all the tour players or most of the tour players that were coming through to really hone into what we want PLD to be. And it's fully machined putters, really, really focusing on the fine details of these putters. And it all started at the tour level. And then probably 2020, 21 time period is when we started to really think about, hey, we should offer this to consumers, ramp up to provide these putters to consumers. And then all of this was in preparation for March 2022. And that's when we launched to the general public PLD Custom.
Awesome. And Alex, just your own personal story on the fitting side. I mean, you came into Ping as a fitter, and we train our fitters, and you have experience fitting all clubs in the bag. What was your gravity towards the putter space and the putter category? What makes you so interested and passionate about putters above and beyond all the other clubs in the bag?
Well, growing up, I was always one of those gearheads. I always liked to tinker, always liked to build different clubs, but putters was always special to my heart. Ping putters especially. I had quite a few ping putters growing up, and I collected putters growing up as well. So putting just in the sense of that was what I was most interested in. It's the club that's most used in the bag, and why not fit the club that's most used in the bag?
Alex, what's the collection like now? I mean, obviously, I think you probably get them for free. I'm sure you can maybe, put a couple in the car to go home and work through the process. What's your collection looking like these days?
I probably have 50 to 60 putters on hand at
Okay.
any time. I do a lot of testing, but the majority of the PLD customs stay in house, other than a couple that are my own. But yeah, it's a cycle, but I'm always big on sticking with one specific putter or one type of putter that fits my stroke, fits my game, and that's what I stick to.
Alex, so PLD, I think folks may have heard of PLD, which stands for Putting Lab Design. They've seen our logo out there. They've seen beautiful machine putters used by our tour players. Paint a little picture of the different, variants of PLD. So, PLD Custom, PLD Milled, Special Edition PLD. Can you give a little overview of the entire program and where folks can go to get access to these different tiers of PLD?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with PLD Milled. PLD Milled is going to be the putters that you can just purchase off the rack. You can go into your local golf shop. You can order it through any authorized Ping account. Your big box stores are going to have PLD Milled putters. These are our retail putters that we have to offer. And from there, we'll kind of branch into PLD Milled Plus, we branch into the special editions, we branch into PLD Custom, but PLD Milled Plus is kind of that next tier or that next step up from PLD Milled. They're also available at retail through authorized Ping retailers, and it kind of bridges that gap between PLD Milled and PLD Custom. So PLD Milled Plus, we have 5 specific models that start blank. The heads start blank. From an alignment standpoint, you can add all kinds of different alignment features. You can do engraving on some of the putters. You can do some lasering on the putters as well. So it's kind of jumps into that custom tier without going fully custom, which PLD Custom is. From PLD Milled Plus, we go into PLD Special Edition or PLD Milled Special Edition, which these are drop-ins that we'll do to our accounts. So specific accounts will get these limited edition or special edition putters. We'll mill out a certain amount of them. This past year, we did the Answer 30. Yep. We did a Javi version of the special edition. And so those are also available in a limited amount to our accounts or to purchase through our accounts. And then from there, next tier up is PLD Custom. So PLD Custom is a fully customizable putter. First thing you do with that is you book on pingpld.com. Top right-hand corner of pingpld.com, there's a spot where you can dive into what Ping PLD Custom actually is and to book appointments. So we do virtual and in-person appointments for Ping PLD Custom.
Alex, a buddy of mine, Mike, did the custom fitting on the app, and we played in rain the other day, and he brought a backup putter out because he didn't want his custom PLD to even deal with. He was like, "This is going to be my backup." It was a Ping putter as well, but he said, "My custom PLD is perfect condition putter." Like that's how much he loves his custom putter and how much he appreciates it.
That's awesome. Very, very cool.
Yeah, so PLD Custom, Alex, that's where you can do literally kind of whatever you want, right? And let's talk a little bit about that experience. So somebody could come in to the lab, and why don't you just start there, talking about a little bit of the difference in the process, what somebody will go through, whether they come into the proving grounds, into the lab here to go through their fitting experience and work directly with you, Colton, and the team, versus what does that experience look like remotely if somebody can't make it into Phoenix? How do we service them and provide some great service during that PLD Custom experience?
Awesome. Yeah. So pingpld.com, you book on the website. You can book virtual or you can book in person. So the in-person, you get the full experience. So we pride ourselves on treating you like a tour pro, going through the same exact process that a tour pro is going to go through. So we start in the putting lab. We'll collect some data. We'll take some video, and we usually try to start with the player's gamer putter. If they have the ability to bring their gamer putter, that gives us a baseline for that. So we're using iPing 2.0 to collect data, which is a proprietary app that we designed in-house. It's measuring the forces, the torques, the accelerations that the player's applying to the putter. It kicks back a lot of data to us. A PGA Pro, LPGA, Corn Ferry, any of the pros that come through go through the same thing. We put them on iPing 2.0 as well. We take the video work to kind of hone in on eye line, on length of putter, to make sure that lie angle's good on that. So we'll start by collecting the data or the club data using iPing 2.0. From there, we'll transition to Quintek's a ball data system that we use, where we can collect ball data to analyze the roll of the ball. And then we do a lot of work outside as well. We have a green outside. After we've kind of dialed in the putting lab, we'll transition to the outside experience and really fine tune the loft, the lie on the putter, look at people's breaking putts. If they have struggles with right to left, left to right putts, really taking a look at that, speed control. And that's the process with the in-person is you get the full go, the tour experience. We're diving into everything that we possibly can. As far as the virtual fitting goes, you sign up for the virtual fitting. When you sign up for the virtual fitting, you get a Zoom link. So it's a Zoom link for the customer that's linked to my personal or Colton Tuttle. He's our other PLD Master Fitter, to our calendars. And that triggers the welcome kit process. So what we do from there is we'll send out a welcome kit to the consumer. This kit goes out approximately 10 to 12 days before their virtual fitting. Mm-hmm. Inside the welcome kit's going to be an iPod Touch, a ping cradle, so an iPod cradle, and a putting disc. Once you power that iPod Touch on, it's going to walk you through the process. We have a different version of iPing that's built into these iPod Touches that's extremely streamlined, and it just walks you through the process. So from there, the person is going to clip it to their putter. They're going to go through 3 sessions of 5 putts each. So they'll take 15 total putts. And at the very end of those 3 sessions, it's going to be submit to ping. It says submit to ping. It comes directly to our inbox. So we have that data. And from there, we create a really nice presentation where we can go over all of that data with the consumers. We can talk about the forces, the torques, the accelerations that they're applying to the putter. We spend the first half of the virtual fitting doing that. The second half, we go through the putters that we have available. And we're mentioning the best putters that we think that fit their stroke based off of the data that's collected.
Marty, is Ping, does Ping run 95% of the iPod Touches in the world now?
I think we do.
I'm wondering what other business still uses iPod Touches. I did virtual Alex probably a year and a half ago, and it popped in. It came out of the box. I'm like, an iPod Touch, man. I haven't seen one of these in a couple of years. It was kind of like a throwback. But I mean, I've done both, Alex. I've done virtual, I've done in person, and you get similar data, you get similar numbers if you do it at home yourself, or obviously if you get a chance to come in. You've talked a little bit about what you're looking at when you're diving into a player's stroke. Can you just expand a little bit more on that? Like, what's the data you're pulling from, the 30 minutes or an hour you're spending with the player?
Yeah, absolutely. So iPing measures 5 different metrics. The first one's closing angle, which just the amount of rotation that the player is applying from the top of their backstroke to impact. So that's really going to help us diagnose what type of stroke type we need to fit a player into. The next metric is impact angle. This is just a relative measurement from where they are at setup with the putter face versus where they are at impact with the putter face. So this really lets us know where the face is relative to where they set up. And this can let us know how a player aims the putter. And that can also lead into further conversations once we get deeper into the process about alignment as well. Next one would be tempo. So that's just measuring the backstroke time divided by the forward stroke time. It kicks back a ratio, kicks back an overall stroke time as well. Tempo really helps us dive into the head weight of a putter. Everybody has a different tempo. And if everybody has a different tempo, then we can kind of target different head weights with those different individuals. From there, we're looking at the impact lie angle. So this is just measuring the lie angle of the putter at impact. And that kind of helps us diagnose whether we need to take a putter flatter, we need to take it more upright, or if it's just good to go. And then the last category that we look at, or the last metric that we look at, is going to be shaft lean at impact. So this is if somebody has the shaft lean forward, hands forward, de-lofting the putter, it's back, adding additional loft, or if you're neutral. What this does is this really helps us dial in the loft or the dynamic loft of a putter for that player. So we're looking at those key 5 metrics. And then with the virtual process, it's a conversation as well. We're getting to know these players. We're asking them about their tendencies of their game, of their putting stroke. And then that can kind of help us get to the end goal of having a putter that's perfectly fit or very, very close to being perfectly fit for them.
Yeah, I think that what's fun, Alex, is that the folks going through PLD Custom at home, I've seen some other fitting processes where you just take a video of your stroke or do something like that, right? We're actually taking these, it's kind of like getting a live MRI on your putting stroke, right? So that face angle or stroke type that we have in there is a proxy for how much torque somebody or twisting about the shaft that somebody's putting on that putter, right? And then you talked about tempo and total time. I think these are a couple things that even the most astute fitter has a hard time seeing with the naked eye, right? So I think a big challenge in putter fitting, club fitting in general, is when do you need to bring in some outside technology to measure these things that you could not that you might be misleading if you look at them with the naked eye, right? So Alex, talk a little bit about what any trends you've seen there on the tempo side and total time. Have you seen folks that have a fast total time but a slow tempo ratio, or a slow total time and a fast tempo ratio? What have you seen in that little nuance, and how does that inform where you go with that player from a head weight or other putter characteristic standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So iPing kicks back a ratio. We'll start with the ratio. Average ratio in iPing is 1.8 to 2.2.
Yep.
If we meet right in the middle, 2.0, so a 2-to-1 ratio. So that can kind of help us diagnose whether that player is maybe slightly more abrupt or slightly more deliberate with their stroke. But another thing iPing also provides us is total time. It provides us total time, but also their backstroke and forward stroke time.
Yep.
So we usually try to use about 1,000 to 1,050 milliseconds as a baseline. That's a standard stroke time. It's neutral, it's average, it's not fast, it's not slow. And let's say iPing kicks back a 2.4 ratio and a 1,200 on the overall stroke time. Well, what that's letting us know is now that player has a slightly slower or more deliberate stroke, and we see that in the data. And if we see that in the data, we now know that, like, hey, okay, they have a slightly slower, more deliberate stroke. We probably need to go with something maybe slightly heavier for stability purposes.
Yeah.
Or let's say it's the exact opposite, to where it kicks back 1.7, 1.8 ratio, something a little bit on the faster side. The overall stroke time is 850, 900 milliseconds. Well, now we know that that player has a slightly faster or more abrupt stroke. And I'm probably not leaning towards a heavy mallet with that style of player. I'm leaning toward wide body blade style, something lighter.
Oh, that's super interesting, because I think some golfers may have heard, or even fitters out there may have heard, 2-to-1 is tour average. Therefore, I need to try to get my player to 2-to-1 tempo ratio from a teaching or instruction standpoint. But from a fitting science standpoint, we're using total time and tempo ratio to really match players to the specific head weight. Alex, what about face angle? So we have delivered face angle. So that's like where the face is delivered relative to the setup is a metric in iPing. Are we trying to get players to be zeroed out, like so to aim and also deliver the face at zero? Or have you seen good players have a consistent open or closed bias? And if so, by how much?
Yeah, so this is definitely not a category where we're trying to zero out a player. I tell everybody this when they come in, and if you're negative, if you're positive, if you're zeroed out, the biggest thing with this is I'm focusing on consistency. If you're going to be negative 0.7 of a degree closed at impact, I want you to do it over and over and over again. I want it to be consistent.
Yeah.
Typically for a right-handed player, if we see a negative number, it kind of leads us to believe that that right-handed player could be a touch of a right aimer. And then to get back to square at impact, they have to come in slightly closed. And then opposite for the positive number as well. If it's positive 0.5 or plus 0.5 on the impact angle, it usually lets us know that that player is potentially a little bit of a left aimer. But we tell everybody, we're not trying to zero you out with this. It's consistency. The majority of the pros that come through, the majority of the pros that we work with are plus or minus something. It is pretty rare to be zeroed out on this, and whether we do it consciously or unconsciously, the stroke is going to correct for an aim bias one way or the other.
Yeah.
Alex, is anybody zeroed? Like you mentioned, few people are zeroed out. Is there anybody on staff that gets to zero? Like anybody that you know is consistently on that number?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Marty, maybe.
I try to be. I'm always striving for it.
I'm looking for that. Alex, when you're fitting someone, I think about this a lot with fitting in general. But when you're fitting somebody for a putter, they're aiming right, they're aiming left, they're doing little things that you guys are finding out either by the eye or by this test. How much are you leaning on putting them in the right putter versus maybe letting them know something they're doing wrong? Because you're not necessarily you're not their instructor, you're not their teacher, right? But there are little things you can help correct them when you see all this data come back your way. So how do you balance that? It seems like it'd be a tough thing to kind of balance, and obviously it takes years of experience to get really comfortable in that.
Sure. And that's one of those things where you have to skate that fine line of teaching and fitting. The majority of the people that are coming in, they're looking for a fitting, and it's my goal to fit them into the best putter possible for the stroke that they're bringing. Now, we see from time to time where somebody might have a significant amount of forward shaft lean. And at that point, the first thing I'm doing is taking a look at their ball position. They might be too far back in the stance. And okay, now we have a lot of forward shaft lean. Hey, let's kick that ball up, a ball and a half forward in the stance, and let's see what that does to the shaft lean. Not always the case that it's going to automatically change it, but we'll make small little tweaks or small little suggestions from a setup standpoint that can potentially get this player to a better spot or have a more consistent stroke.
Yeah. Alex, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit to alignment markings, right? So we talked about aim. We're not necessarily trying to get folks to get the face back zeroed out relative to where they aim. We've seen good players of all different skill levels, maybe aim a little off and their stroke kind of gets it back to get that putter face online to their intended start line. What about alignment markings? We have a lot of offerings. If we look at PLD Custom, you can kind of do whatever you want. If you look at Milled Plus, You have some customizations options there with the alignment markings. What type of player finds themselves in a dot on the top rail, no alignment marking at all on an answer putter versus lines that frame the ball versus a line in the cavity? What does that process look like, and what trends are you seeing from that perspective? And do you use how a player, maybe what golf ball and ball marking they use to inform that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I always ask when we start talking about alignment is, how do they line their putt up? Do they have a line on the ball? Do they use the markings on the ball? Are they pointing that line? Are they pointing that marking at a target? Are they pointing it at the hole? It's just trying to figure out the tendencies of this player, how they align. And we'll see a lot of times where people might be spot aimers. It's like, okay, I'm aiming to a spot that's 3 foot in front of the ball, and I line that line up to that. Well, that's where it could be beneficial to have a top rail line, because now that top rail line acts as an extension from the line on the ball. And now we can point that top rail line at our target. Same thing with flange line as well. It's just, you have that slight separation between the two. But then we'll get a lot of players that are face aimers versus people who are aiming alignment lines, who are aiming the logos on the ball at the target.
Yeah.
So for the face aimer players, usually that's where I'll lean more towards the dot or even the top rail line, just because that gives us a centering point. We have a centering point with the back of the ball. Now we can aim the face at that centering point, and ball width features can really help out with that as well. So if you have a putter that has really nice ball width features that are built into it, whether we've cut ball width lines or not, we have that dot on the top, and we just have a lot of things that can help us frame the ball, center with the back of the ball. And from there, we're just aiming the face at the target that we've picked out.
I mean, Marty, this is such a big part of modern golf. Is you think about the golf balls that have come out over the last few years,
Yeah.
right? You've gone from the original Pro V that I don't think had lines on it, to then having lines, and then now the golf balls have triple tracks. There's so much alignment out there for the player.
Yeah.
And I'm a player that doesn't like the lines. I'm a guy
Yeah.
that I like to set it up where I see the name of the golf ball kind of facing me straight up, because I get a little too technical when I'm trying to get the line of my putter on the line of the golf ball. And then I'm trying to hit, I almost feel like I'm trying to hit the perfect putt versus like letting my feel take over. I think this is something that people have to figure out almost before they even do a fitting, is how best do I see a putt? How much does a putt make sense to me when I'm thinking about where to aim, how far out to go? Am I a feel putter? I mean, these are things that I think are important to kind of go over yourself. It's almost, Marty, to your MRI analogy you made earlier. It's like people get nervous about an MRI. They get nervous about fitting at times as well, but it's going over some of the things you can go over yourself before you go into the process, so you can actually answer some of these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think how you mark your golf ball, what works good for you, and we could as part of PLD, we'll help evaluate that for you. Maybe somebody struggles with start line on short putts only. Start line's more important than speed on short putts. Maybe you want to use a line on your ball on short putts and have a model that can help you with that there, but let you be more speed focus, feel focus on the longer putts, because that priority of speed to face angle kind of changes depending on the putt. So that's I think a big part of what Alex and his team does is understand that if you're a golfer that keeps diligent stats on your putting, maybe through Arcos or another stats tracking tool or your own little system, certainly bring those into the putter fitting process, because we're going to want to understand that. Not only does your memory think, maybe your recency bias think that you struggle on longer putts because you just 3-putted the last hole, there was an important match or something, but is that persistent over time? And I think that's something really fun we get access to in the ShotLink data from the tour players, but we want to be able to pass that level of service to the everyday golfer. And yeah, it's been fun to see all the different markings on golf balls. And speaking of golf balls, we in the lab, Alex, have pretty much a majority of the most popular golf balls out there, because part of Ballnamic, Shane, that is we ask for your feel sound preference with your
Yep.
golf ball on short game. You know, we've both hit balls that you can barely hear them when you putt, and then others that
Totally.
are louder and clickier. Now, a big part of the nuance of the perfect putter, which a PLD Custom is all about, is getting the acoustics dialed in. So, Alex, let's dive into sound, feel, how a player's golf ball might inform that, and what are some of the techniques we can use with milling patterns, etc., to inform and influence that through the PLD process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always ask the player what golf ball they're playing, and you're right, we keep quite a few of the most popular brands in the lab, different covers, whether it's something softer, something firmer. And if we don't have the ball after the fact, we usually go out and get it.
Yeah.
But
Alex, you can't ask Marty that question, by the way. It'd be like a 20-minute answer. If you said, Marty, what golf ball do you play? And he'd go, what month is it? What tip? How's the wind? But I digress. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. So that's the first thing we always ask when they come in the lab is, what golf ball are you playing? Because that's going to dictate or help us determine what milling pattern we need to do on the face of the putter, or what milling pattern the player might like on the face of the putter. Feel and sound is extremely important in putting. And we have different milling patterns, different milling depths that we can achieve on these PLD custom putters to help provide positive acoustics, positive feedback to the players and what they want to hear. So the smoother you go on the face, the clickier the sound's going to be, the more feedback you're going to get. And then we offer smooth, shallow, deep milling. We also have some horizontal milling that we can do on the faces as well. But if we're looking at just the smooth face, completely smooth, firmest off the face, the most feedback, so the most click. As we get to the shallow mill, it's a little bit softer than your smooth face. It's a little bit of a more muted sound to it, but you still get feedback. You still get some click to it. Mm-hmm. As we start to transition into that deeper milling, that more aggressive milling on the face, it's a little bit softer off the face, but the thing that most players notice is the sound difference, because sound and feel go hand in hand. With the deeper milling, it tends to be a little bit more of a thuddier sound, so a little bit deeper sound. If we hear something that's a little bit deeper or something that's a little bit thuddier, we're automatically going to think that it's a little bit softer off the face as well. And one thing with the milling pattern, and this is something that we've tested over time, is there's not necessarily a performance difference between smooth and deep. From a rollout perspective, they're very, very similar. A lot of this is just going to be player preference. So if you prefer to hear something more muted, feel something a little bit softer, that's when we go with more of that deeper or more aggressive milling. But if you're somebody that likes to hear a lot of feedback or wants to hear some click sound, that's when we start to move more towards the shallow or the smooth face.
Alex, you talked early on about Bubba being kind of the origin of the PLD journey for us, and which one of the milling patterns that we use do we call the Bubba Groove? That's what we've always called it for slang here, right?
So the Bubba Groove would be a horizontal milling, and there's a couple different versions of this. Hovland has the same thing. So Hovland has a ball with horizontal milling on the face. It's about 4,000 to 5,000 deep on the face. And if you're comparing that to the circular milling that we offer, circular milling, the shallow mill is going to be 4,000 deep on the face. So those feel and sound very, very similar. Same thing with the Bubba Groove. The Bubba Groove is going to be about that 4,000 to 5,000 deep on the face, and his are full face horizontal.
Yeah. So we can use that ball width milling for a golfer who's either left eye dominant, depending on how they set up, that can see the loft on the face, see the face a little bit, and that can help them frame the golf ball a little bit as well, Alex?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. We always ask eye dominance as well, whether somebody's right or left eye dominant. It's kind of a gray area for us, but there is some of it that plays into it, especially from an alignment and an offset standpoint.
Alex, are we talking millions of options in terms of customization? I mean, is it infinite? Like, do you have an idea of what the number would be? in terms of how much you could customize your PLD?
It's a lot. We try to provide as much as possible. And if it's something that we haven't done before, I'm going to ask about it.
Okay.
So if a customer wants this type of alignment versus this type of milling versus this type of engraving, and we haven't done it before, absolutely. I'm going to inquire about it. If we can do it, we're going to do it.
Alex, tell us about a time, you, Colton, and our team here at the Proving Grounds is working with players day in and day out on these most nuanced topics and preferences. Tell us about a time where we've identified maybe a gap in our product offerings, right? So you're seeing a certain trend or tendency or something in the lab that we've kind of turned into a product offering. Where have we seen a gap in one of these attributes that's so important to putter performance?
Yeah. So we actually noticed something within the past couple of years and introduced a special edition putter this past year to fill this gap. So if we're looking at iPing data, we have millions and millions of data points in iPing. So we're able to identify what's the most closing angle, the least amount of closing angle, how many people fit into certain types of closing angles. And we noticed that with the slight arc category that we had the answer putter, which is going to hang or have 40, 43, 42 degrees of toe hang to it. And then from there, we go down to face balance options or a double bend shaft with a slight amount of toe hang. So there's a gap there. So we go from 0 amount of toe hang all the way up to 40 plus amount of toe hang. And where's the in between there? So what we did is we created the answer 30, which sits right in between that. So your traditional answer hangs the 40, 42, 43 degrees. We go to the face balance putter, that's at 0. And then we have the answer 30. The reason why we call an answer 30 is because it hangs at 30 degrees. So if we look at this from a rotation standpoint, and if we're identifying like, okay, 5.5 degrees, 6 degrees of rotation in iPing is an answer style putter, 3.5 is the cutoff for that straight stroke. What about those players that sit around 4 degrees of rotation, 3.7 degrees of rotation? Where do those players fit in? What type of putter can we provide to them? And that's where the answer 30 came in. It's because we had that gap and we wanted to fill that gap.
Yeah.
I mean, is that where most models come from, Alex? The idea of filling a gap? Because, Marty's building new drivers. Marty's leaning into the technology to come up with the latest and greatest that's going to go a little bit longer, a little bit straighter for the player, and he's going to kind of test those numbers and test those limits. How does it go in terms of introducing new putters? Is it just simply we don't have a putter model for this space and we need one?
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we had a gap there. We needed to fill that gap. We filled that gap. Another way that we figure out if we need new models, if we need to maybe tweak this model here and there, is just working with our tour players. They're very, very valuable to us and what they want to see, where we can go from a design perspective, what gaps need to be filled. Like if we have this player, let's take Cam Champ, for instance, and he's one of the reasons why we made the answer 30 putter. It's because he's not in the straight stroke, but he's not full slide arc. He has some rotation in his stroke, but he kind of floats in between those two. So we needed to fill that gap. That's why we created the answer 30. And we get a lot of feedback from our tour players, what they want to see. The answer 2D putter is a fine example or a good example of that. We worked with Tony Finau on that putter. That putter was designed for him. We made it our goal to design a putter that looked good to his eye, but also performed how a tour level putter should perform. So we worked hand in hand with Tony to design the Answer 2D. Same thing with Victor Hovland and the DS72 putter. That putter was designed for him. He worked with our team. He worked with Tony Serrano to design this putter. So a lot of it starts from the tour level, where we get the feedback from the guys out on tour, the tour pros out on tour, and then it just kind of filters down from there.
I remember playing with Victor when he first got that putter. I got paired with him at the Phoenix Open, and that putter was brand new. It was like everything's fresh, the milling right in the middle. Alex, this is the same model he uses now. It was before it really patinaed and got some little dings on him, but that putter's served him pretty well, especially a year ago here in the FedEx Cup. Alex, let's talk a little bit about alternative style putting, right? We're seeing more folks putting with what I like to call mid-length. Victor was doing that, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, putting kind of mid-length style where they grip down on the putter. Are you seeing folks dabbling with arm lock a little bit more, or not so much? How about folks doing long putters? We're seeing some younger generation dabbling in the long putter space. What are you seeing amongst the alternative style putting techniques? And, what are some of those typical builds like for an arm lock or a mid-length putter?
Yeah. So we see a lot of people interested in the mid-length putters. They're very popular. They're very trendy right now. We have quite a few pros that have come through that have wanted to dabble with them, have wanted to test them out. Off the top of my head, Seamus Power came through earlier this year. We had built him a mid-length putter, and we looked at data with it. Data looked awesome. Really, really good. Super, super consistent with it. So these mid-length putters are just providing a lot of stability for players who are maybe struggling a little bit with traditional putters, or they just want to try something completely new.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that right now, to where they're trying the mid-length. And usually from a typical mid-length build, I'm asking that player what they're typically playing from their traditional putter. So let's take Victor, for instance. Victor Hovland's putter is 36 inches in length. He chokes down to 34 inches. Usually with a lot of these mid-length putters, we like to see about 2 inches to 3 inches above where they're gripping the putter. And that's just to provide the additional stability. And we've had some players test out some long putters. Marty is big advocate for the long putter here. So of course we have to build some long putters for our tour pros as well, who are wanting to test these out. Long putters have been around for a long, long time, and they really haven't gone anywhere, but they're starting to have a little bit of a resurgence now. And it's exciting to see, just because it's another alternative to potentially help make a player better, help them make more putts. Arm lock putters, we see some arm lock putters as well. I would say that the mid-length putters are more on trend than the arm lock putters right now. Yeah. But arm lock putters are still a thing. So we're still fitting some arm lock putters for some of the players that are coming through.
Here's a question. Yeah, on arm lock. On arm lock, Shane, is what's a typical loft you fit a player to an arm lock? On average.
So first thing we look at with arm lock is going to be the amount of shaft lean a player applies. With arm lock, it's anchored into if they're right-handed player, into their left arm. So usually they apply a fair amount of forward shaft lean. And kind of that target loft on that 5.5, 6 degrees range is usually where we're targeting, assuming that they have a fair amount of forward shaft lean with the arm lock style putter.
Alex, what are you rocking? I mean, you're the putter guy. You got the collection. What's the gamer look like right now? How have you customized it?
So I don't have a ton of rotation in my stroke, more of that straight back, straight through type of stroke. So
you're good. So you're a good putter is what you're telling us. Thank you, Alex. That's what I'm getting. I get it. You're good. You're good at it. Okay.
The impact angle looks pretty good. I've gravitated towards the Oslo putter. I've tried some other putters, some other face balance style, or just a touch of toe hang style putters. I play a double bend, and the Oslo is the bread and butter for me. I've built up a few other putters. I've tested a couple other putters, and I just always go back to this Oslo putter. It's available in PLD milled. It's available in PLD milled plus. It's something that's available in PLD custom, and you can do all the different hosel options with the Oslo head. One thing I like about the Oslo is it just sits super flat. It sits super square. It doesn't open. It doesn't close. With some mallets, you might see that from time to time, but this Oslo just sits so square on the ground, and it's inspires so much confidence.
I mean, the PLD program, I mean, we talked off the top. It's not been around that long. I mean, these putters are unbelievable. They look like pieces of art. They're exciting to get. I mentioned my buddy Mike having one. My buddy Andrew, I know, was messing around with Marty's putter a few months ago, and he got himself a new PLD, and he's been rolling it as good as he's ever rolled it. I mean, this is so cool to see being such a part of the Ping family because, again, having that final piece, I mean, great wedges, great iron players. I mean, Ping has been a great putter company for so long, but having that next level of putter just feels like it pops the bag a little bit. And I get so excited, Marty, when I see PLD putters in players' bags because, they've gone through the process to perfect that part of their bag.
Yeah, it's been fun for me, Shane, to see. I mean, one thing we haven't talked about a lot is how popular PLD has been with our college golfers, our college teams. I go to the mini tour event. I played in the Arizona Open a few weeks ago. I saw tons of PLDs on the putting green, which was really fun with our good tournament players. I played with Nico Galletti, who's on the Europe DP World Tour this year, had a sweet PLD putter. So it's been fun, but what I love is being able to pass that level of customization service to the everyday golfer as well. And I also love that we're not just only doing the customization piece, which is awesome. You want that emotional connection with your putter. Putting is where you're the most vulnerable and fragile as a golfer, I think. So having your kid's initials or something personal on the putter is comforting, but we are embracing and leaning into that every one of our PLDs is custom fit. Our PLD custom is custom fit, whether you come here or we send you the iPod, we get that data and we're throwing our full suite of putter fitting science at it. That's what I'm super excited about is to know that everybody who has a PLD custom has literally been through, an iPing fitting, gotten all that data to inform them, and working with our talented fitters like Alex and Colton in our team here.
Alex, it's been a great conversation, great chat with you. As I said, I was super excited about this because I remember getting my first PLD when they first came out and taking it back because I wanted it a little softer. And we were adding grooves at the time. And to kind of fast forward to the PLD I use now, I mean, it will not leave the bag. It is my favorite club in the bag, and it remains my favorite club in the bag. And my son just convinced me to put a Hulk grip on it because he got a Spider-Man grip on his. So it's a slightly different look than what I'm used to having right now. I don't know how long it's going to stay, but the putter still remains as beautiful as ever. So, Alex, we appreciate the time. Marty, always great to chat with you. Excited to see you soon. Make sure you check out that YouTube battle we had. It's on the Ping YouTube page. If you haven't watched it yet, definitely worth your time. This is the Ping Proving Grounds podcast.